Hey guys, it's Paradise, and today we have something very special, another podcast episode. So we have 2-6 and two special guests, Joe and Jono, the Monster Hunter community managers. Joe, do you want to start off? Just introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Joe, and then we'll jump into exciting stuff, weapon changes, feedback, different things from the community update, and all of that. I'm really excited for this chat, by the way, guys, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to be here, isn't it? Sorry, after you, Joe.
Oh, well, who's going? Oh, I'm not sure who's going first.
Whoever wants to.
Go ahead, Jono.
Okay, yeah, no, it's awesome to be. Obviously, you know, we're fresh here after the pre-launch community update, which was really, really cool. And yeah, I'm Jono. I'm one of the community managers on Monster Hunter, and I look after the European EMEA side alongside our regional community managers.
And yeah, I'm Joe. I'm one of the Capcom USA community managers. Work on Monster Hunter. Also worked on Dragon's Dogma and a couple other things. You may have seen a little Okami reveal, which was recently
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So I wanted to start it off because there's something that's really interesting to me in 2.6, which is, you know, we deal with a lot of different community managers, and I feel like you guys, and we briefly talked about this before actually recording, but you're a little bit more involved when it comes to Monster Hunter stuff. And 2.6, you can go into this a bit more.
Yeah, when it comes to your role, it seems like it's a lot more broad than just like social media management in the way that we normally think about it, or just community management. You're just not posting on socials. You're actually there in the mix with the community, finding out their feedback, if there's stuff annoying them, if there's stuff that they really like. You're also doing a lot more than that. So I think I have an idea of what you guys do, but if you could explain how some of that feedback got into the game, what your general like day-to-day is a little bit, and like some of the stuff that you do, because it's really impressive when I think you guys are so on point. Like the feedback that the community had actually got addressed. It feels like people were being listened to. So Joe or Jono, whoever wants to take that question or answer that.
Do you want to take this? Do you want to kick this one off, Joe?
Yeah. I think community management and I guess like social media management as a role has really changed a lot over the years. I think like, you know, if you think back to like traditional community management, it was a lot of like talking in like forums and stuff and replying to people directly and that kind of thing, where then social media gets like into the mix, and then it becomes like a lot more like marketing side as well. So now it's kind of like our roles are a mix of both. I think like one out of necessity in terms of like Capcom's a pretty lean company, so we don't have like a crazy amount of like staff that works on all of our games. You know, we do tend to like wear a lot of hats, which I think is representative of like a lot of Japanese companies. That is how generally we tend to work, but it's also I think like a benefit of what like kind of the teams that we work with. Like the Monster Hunter team is this, they really value community and they care a lot about it, so they care what the community thinks, and a lot of that is us, you know, laddering back up a lot of community feedback. Like we have a lot of meetings with them and they ask us, well, what did they think of this specific beat, or, you know, what are the reactions to this? And it's kind of like our job to help filter that. So in terms of like our day-to-day, a lot of it is managing the social media accounts. A lot of it is keeping an eye on what people are saying. There's a lot of stuff that's like happening behind the scenes that I think people don't think about in terms of like we need to do like a lot of reporting and things that are like logistical, like having meetings with people internally and sharing what we're doing internally to make sure people know what's going on. So some of that is like really fun stuff. Some of it is more like, you know, standard corporate stuff, so, as you can expect. But it is all really fun. So I think, you know, we're super fortunate and blessed to be in these roles. So it's fun times. Well, I'll throw it over to you, Jono.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to kind of follow on from what Joe said, like, and every company has a different idea of what a community manager is for them. So whilst there are this kind of general kind of skill set you might have, even then that your job from one company to another will be vastly different, ranging from just how they expect you to work to kind of how community management is viewed as a whole within the company. And as Joe said, what's really cool about Capcom is community is valued, and specifically the Monster Hunter team, who, you know, we spend the most time working with. You know, they always care about community managers, what's the sentiment and things like that. So it's a really great place to be as a community manager, you know, sharing that feedback, you know, and also the team go through, you know, they check social media, they check YouTube comments and things like that. They might drop in sneakily on like content creator videos, as we were chatting about before, and things like that. So, you know, the team are really engaged with the community. Joe and I are always lurking Reddit, social media, creator videos, things like that. We are part of the community ourselves. We're not just community managers assigned to it. We were naturally part of it before we got the jobs. So, you know, we love the fandom. We are the fandom too. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And like on the day-to-day side as well, obviously Joe's in the US, I'm in the UK. And even then we kind of chat every day. We have a catch up every day, chat what's been going on, stuff like that, hot community topics. Are they talking about wyvern eggs again and things like that? You know, so yeah, you know, we work super closely together too. And yeah, it's a ton of fun. But yeah, no 2 days are the same either. Like, you know, been working on the pre-launch community update recently, and then, you know, going into January, obviously it's like, oh, it's launch year, and then we get the gears will shift again.
So how does it exactly work when you get that feedback? Say if it's something like Hit Stop and you've got like contending feedback with, say, something like the Lance, like where does it go? All into like a spreadsheet or something? Like how did the dev team has also triaged that as well? Does it, like, what did they do with all that information?
So, oh, sorry, Joe, do you want to start?
You kick it off.
All right. So basically, Joe and I, we work quite qualitative data. And because of the value placed on community and community management by the team, the trust is there for us to be like, write something and go, this is how the community are feeling about this. And the team will go, yep, you know, this, we believe you, this is clearly important because you've highlighted it. So we have like our big PowerPoint decks broken down into specific topics. So you have like positive, neutral / feedback or requests and, you know, negative. Then we kind of dig into different topics and we really break it down and explain it and where we saw it and whether it's a lot of people or not a lot of people, or if we feel something should be paid more attention to. And then we both meet up with the team once a week. In our regional meetings with Capcom Japan, and we actually talk through it with them as well, and they ask us questions and, you know, what do we think, and we feedback there. And a lot of what we do is facilitated as well. So as kind of Joe said as well, we work with many different people, and we have a team called Business Services who Patrick is part of, and they actually translate and localize everything for us as well, so we can have that really clear communication. So that's our reports as well as like when we're talking in meetings. So, you know, a lot of what we do is enabled by a lot of other passionate people as well. So yeah, over to you, Joe.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out. On our side, we have Mana, who does a lot of our. I don't know if she was gonna watch this, but, you know, she's the MVP of our team. Like, basically, if she wasn't around, like it's really tough for us to do anything. But she does all of our communications with Japan. So we work a lot closely with a lot of those teams who are able to kind of like take our feedback and bring it to the teams. And I think like one of like the biggest challenges, I guess, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but for our jobs is really like taking the feedback that we see online and kind of like filtering it, right? So it's like, if we look at something, is it representative of what the community is saying, or is it kind of like a small vocal minority? Is it something that if the team makes a change here is going to upset another group? And that's really like where we have to look at stuff and try to make the call there, and make sure that we're representing the community correctly. So we have to look at a lot of different places, whether it's social, at Reddit, or even like other smaller communities, like what people are saying in Discord communities, things like that. So again, it's like there's no exact science to it. I think a lot of it sometimes is we have to make like gut calls on how we feel things are going, based on like what we feel as players and what we feel as like members of the community, but also like just tracking like industry conversations as a whole and like what's happening in the gaming industry, trying to keep our pulse on that. So yeah, again, it's not an exact science, but it is fun though, because you know, I think we all love the game. We love like Capcom games, and we also just love gaming in general, and we try to like look at everything from that kind of lens.
Oh, that's really cool info, like, and to know that and how it kind of really breaks down. Was there any differences between like the Japanese or any other regions giving certain feedback that wasn't in like the Western one? Because obviously they were talking about the hit stop being a Western problem that's been like fixed now, but was there any for like Wilds that was different, where like Japanese players were having an issue that Western players weren't having, or vice versa?
I think the one that I think was you know, even though the insect glaive feedback was big here in the US and in Europe, for Japan it was like instant, like top of the like chain. Like this was like something that needed to be addressed like, immediately. Which is like, you think about Legacy of Monster Hunter, right? And like the series has such a core community there that's been there since the very, very beginning, and there's been a lot of players who have been there since the start. So some of those things were things that we gave feedback on as well, but it was at the top of the list when we saw it from the Japan side. So it's pretty interesting. But what about you, Jono? What did you see?
Yeah, and kind of to touch around on hit stop as well, because obviously initially the reason hit stop was toned down in Wilds was because of Western player feedback from World, and it was kind of the impact that had, and kind of showing that even though the kind of the big upsurge and kind of explosion of Monster Hunter and the rest of World was new, the team immediately took feedback to heart from the new burgeoning player base. So it was kind of like a pleasant surprise when we were like, yeah, no, the Western players want hit stop back. And as I think Tokuda-san mentioned in the community update, this was awesome to them because this was kind of the spirit of Monster Hunter that the Japanese community knew and really, really liked. Yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting to see. And as Joe said, Insect Glaive was like at the top of the pile, like in big flashing, like red. And so much so that even at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show, that the dev team were there, like looking around on the show floor, talking to people, asking us what people are thinking. And even that early on at the first hands-on, when people were like, the Insect Glaive, the source feels different, it's not quite what we expected. And the team were like, right, okay, we're taking a note of that. And, these are like, the directors and things like that who are going around checking this because, they love the game and, they want you to have a great time with it. And I love the fact that they're there, like, kind of like looking over someone's shoulder, like, oh, all right then.
They're proper in the mix. And that's the thing that I've really appreciated with this kind of whole lead up to Wilds was just how transparent they're being with like their feedback. You don't really get to see it, and even down to just the humility. Yesterday he was like, I got something wrong in an interview, guys, sorry about that, let me just correct myself. And I was like, what, this guy's a G. Because there's a certain type of like hubris that can come from like developing really like massive games, but you don't see any of that with the Monster Hunter like creators and designers and stuff. So it's really cool. It's nice to see that.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say I think this is all fascinating, like for me, so I hope people do as well. But we see a lot of comments, especially after this community update, where people are like, oh, the dev team actually listen and make these changes, and they really appreciate that. And from what we've just heard from you guys, I think you guys are an integral part of that machine to get that feedback that people need listening to from the Western side over to the developers. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you guys for like doing a great job of collating what I would say is the main points of pain that people had across most of the weapons that actually needed it. So I think that's just worth shouting out and is incredible. But let's just touch on the Insect Glaive, because that was a big one. And even over in the West, like in our comment sections and stuff like that, people were obviously very eager to have the bounce come back, the vaulting dance. But you guys went above and beyond with the Insect Glaive feedback, and we've got the aerial attack increase when you're doing those aerial bounces to stay in the air. You've got the earplug swing back on all three essences, which I think is everyone would have missed that, but not to save the best for last is the offset attack, which was like the biggest surprise for me. And I think I really enjoyed using the descending slash and doing it in the air and going into the spiral rising slash. And I think having it as an offset is just something that it's just incredible, right?
Yeah, like, they're always cooking. Sorry, Joe, I think you're a bit more familiar with the weapon than I am.
No, I think actually you might be.
I used it a little bit in my console playthrough for Rise and Sunbreak. That was my third playthrough. But yeah, no, I'm just like, I like this bug. It looks cool. But yeah, it's not like with the Sword and Shield where I'll just sit there for hours and be like, oh no, you're not leaving until I'm finished telling you about Metsu Shurigeki from Sunbreak.
100%. Joe, what is your main weapon, by the way?
Greatsword.
Greatsword. Oh, you're a greatsword guy. That rising slash, the offset attack on the greatsword is just nuts. I was playing around with it because I was the one that had to do the guide for the greatsword, and even though it doesn't feel like it's got many changes, it's mechanically like completely different in terms of the little things that they've introduced that make the weapon feel and the flow of it feel completely like fun and different to play. So I really had a ton of fun on that greatsword. What did you feel about it?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think trying to like train myself to actually use the block That was
Yeah.
something that's a little bit new because it's way more viable, and also you can get like kind of the perfect guard with the clash there. So kind of remembering to use that stuff, I think it's still a little bit of adjustment for me, but it's just so satisfying. And now like they've added like all these hit stop changes and like the extra sound effects, it's gonna be good.
I feel like you just dropped in the as like a side note in the community update. You're like, oh yeah, and true charge slash damage has been increased. I'm like, what? That's a massive for the great sword. That's great.
Yeah. I really like that for all the weapons that they've kind of like looked at all of them, and then instead of like the philosophy being like, oh, okay, let's like nerf everything so that everything is just like at an equal like standard level, they've been like, oh, let's like balance stuff so that it's fun and everything is viable. I know this is like something that is always extremely tough to get right. So we'll find out if like we've kind of gotten to the point where everything feels right. But the team is coming from a really good place of like, okay, let's just try to make everything like really fun. Let's make everything really viable. Let's address pain points where the weapon's not working as quite as intended. Like something with the bow, which got a lot of cool tweaks. So yeah, I just like really love hearing that from Tokuda-san. I think the philosophy is there.
Yeah, that's not all the feedback points that are going to be fixed in the launch patch or whatever this patch is, right? Because you said that there's more to come that they haven't dove into, and there's like a lot of time between now and launch as well. So I'm guessing that they're toiling away in the studio, still cooking up some surprises for us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a lot of it was out of necessity because our stream was very long.
Yeah.
And, so we're just like, look, we gotta go. Let's get the main four, and we'll touch on some the other. I think it was bow and hunting horn, and then we'll save the others for another time. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought actually talking about the hunting horn, I thought it was really interesting the way that they've tackled the sort of pocket hunting horn problem, which I think hopefully will just mean that people can just experiment with their secondary weapons rather than feeling, the necessity to bring the hunting horn, while also not disrupting the hunting horn mains, which was, I always think that was a problem. It's like, oh, how are they going to do this? Because the hunting horn mains, you can't just nerf it, because then that's just going to make the weapon worse. But by making those like mechanical tweaks to do with switching off of the weapon, I think that was a really smart way to go about it. I just want to jump over to the lance, because the lance was sometimes it gets forgotten about. I feel like, it's that meaty stalwart weapon that people don't put respect on, and it had some nice new things. And 2.6, you were a bit more of our lance expert here, but it looks like it got some pretty meaty changes, right?
Yeah, I'm just championing the lance. The way that the feedback was in the stream yesterday was like one-liners, but it's massive changes. There's like 5 moves added to the lance. There's like counter guard is back. It's like you've got a little drill stab on the next on your power guard. You've got basically counter thrust also being back. All the lance moves basically have the same name, so it's very difficult to keep track of them. But the lance is going to feel completely different, and you've said that there's like speed and just fluidity changes to the lance as a whole. So the lance is looking pretty spicy. I don't know how much you guys have play experience with the lance. I know it's like 2 players up there that actually play the lance, so I'm not going to expect you to like deep dive on it, but if you have any insight on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I think, the lance, a lot of people kind of view it as a simple weapon because it might not have the flashiest looking moveset. But, there's a lot to the weapon, and you can be really surgical with this thing. You can dance around monsters, or you can go for a more kind of stalwart guard focused build. And like what I've noticed, especially with the lance in Wilds, is the animations and the moves of the lance. They look meaty, right? It looks like you're literally punching the monster with this lance rather than kind of poking it and things like that. And I think with the changes the team have done to the lance, and when Tokuda-san was explaining the philosophy that originally they designed it to give it a bit more kind of complexity and kind of speed, it actually was counterintuitive. So they've kind of gone back to the lance's roots and kind of expanded it that way. To kind of really open up its playstyle and kind of flow, which I think is great. And I think, don't be put off by it that it might not look as flashy as the longsword or the bow or something like that. The weapon is very fun because the satisfaction comes from being this immovable force where the harder the monster hits at you, you hit back even harder and things like that. So I do like the lance because I like shielded weapons anyway. So I've got a bit of a bias.
Always looking for chances to plug the sword and shield.
Yeah. You know what? With that in mind, let's talk about the sword and shield, because it's such a cool. Like, again, it has a lot of tweaks in Wilds, but I feel like the tweaks actually just make it play so much more smoother and mobile. And I don't think it translates well until people actually try it. Because for me, like I tried it in World after the fact, after trying it in Wilds, and it's like, oh gosh, it feels so much worse when you go backwards. Like they've really done such a good job with it. But there was a lot of listed improvements for the Sword and Shield, like responsiveness of mobile chop, side slash combo, guard slash perfect rush, increased evasion of the backstep and the sliding swipe. Since you are the SNS main, John, I'd love a little bit more of insight into that from you if you can.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's really interesting because, you know, the Sword and Shield is kind of seen as like kind of the jack of all trades kind of weapon. It can do many different things. And I think, you know, coming into Wilds, obviously with the beta, a lot of people said that Perfect Rush felt a little bit undercooked compared to some of your other options. Because obviously in Iceborne, like especially if you're running like an elemental build, Perfect Rush was your go-to. That's what you do. And as we've seen with the other weapons that Tokuda-san has spoken about with his balance philosophy, he wants all weapons to be viable and fun. And within those weapons, for all the different styles of using them to be viable too. So there's not one perfect way to play the weapon. And if you don't play it that way, you're playing suboptimal, right? And how the kind of power is shifted around the weapons to have that is great. So, you know, we mentioned that, you know, there's been increased fluidity and like damage to your basic attacks. Perfect Rush as well has also had a bit of a damage boost. And as Joe said, it's that careful balance of, you know, bringing everything up, but not making one particular element of the weapon outshine everything else. And the bow is another good example of that, where I know we've not got to that yet, where some of the power has been shifted into the normal attacks and slightly removed from the focus strike, where it's still very strong, but it's not just like, this is the best way to get as much damage out as quick as possible. And I think with Sword and Shield, it's perfect for that because it's, you know, it's basically two weapons in one. You've got a blunt weapon on one arm, you've got your, you know, your slashing weapon on another, and you've got all these moves and ways you can play it. It's got, you know, two different ways to finish a focus strike. You can apply a focus strike from the air with it. So I absolutely love what they're doing with it, especially the fact that, you know, you can play it however you want and you can get optimum damage or performance out of it without having to go, right, now I need a perfect rush or now I need to do this. So I'm incredibly excited about it. I can't wait. So more people should play Sword and Shield.
Just kind of backing up like what you're kind of going through, Jono, of just basically like trying to make each weapon fun. The changes that they made to the lance were kind of like out of noticing that people were kind of just like doing the same thing, and it was kind of boring. Like you can't, like when one play style is gone, you're kind of just playing like one optimal way, and it's not necessarily like that fun. It's kind of repetitive. So what they really want to bring back is bring back that reactive style where you can really kind of like wait for the monster to attack you and then do a counter or like bait out a counter basically. And bringing back that play style was something that they identified as something that's like, this is going to make the weapon more fun. It's not necessarily going to make it like the most optimal, like in terms of making this change, but it is going to make it way more fun for people. So I like that they're looking at the weapons from that point of view of like, let's look at like the weapon behavior, things that we can add to make the play style like have a little bit more skill expression and just allow people to do like really what they want to do with the weapon. So yeah, it's cool that the team is able to recognize that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely nice that they're experimenting with different things as well. Now, like right now, before launch is probably the best time for them to experiment with different options and try different things, like removing hit stop and seeing if players like it, or trying new moves on the lance on different flows as well. So, and how quickly they are to respond to those changes is like the most important part of it as well. So that's really, really cool. Paradise, what's the next weapon that we are talking about?
We're going to move to the Switch Axe, but I just want to quickly say I just love Jono's passion every time the Sword and Shield comes up in conversation. You can really tell he loves the weapon. I love it. So the Switch Axe was an interesting one. Being a bit more adept on the Switch Axe, I feel like I find it more intriguing than some of the other changes because it was specifically called out with sort of changes to the full release slash and the counter rising slash, which are obviously two brand new moves to the Switch Axe, which I think is great that they're being tweaked and improved to feel better, basically, is I think how it was worded. And one of the things that was in the side was various adjustments to switching into sword mode. But I do see a lot of pain points from the community in that the sword mode of the Switch Axe isn't as powerful feeling as it was in the previous games in terms of its like damage output and the individual swing hits. And what some people were finding was like the optimal flow was to sort of play Axe and then spam full release when you could, and then play Axe and spam full release. I'm not sure how like much more feedback can go and make a change, but since there is a bit of time, I just wanted to raise that point for any Switch Axe players out there that they're looking for a little bit more damage in the sword mode, you know?
Yeah, I think the added damage in the sword mode is one of the changes that's being made. Like they really want to make it like more responsive and that you could basically charge your gauge faster. So hopefully everybody should see that the sword mode has been buffed.
I'm very happy to hear that. Great, we did it. Yeah, and I actually really like those new moves on the Switch Axe. So to hear that full release is being sort of improved, it's also having that knockback resistance in it as well, because it is a very long charge time. So that's really cool to hear. And I don't know if you guys know, but the counter rising slash being made more like easy to use and having a shorter animation lock. I just wondered what exactly that meant, if you're able to comment on that.
I'm not exactly sure on that one, because I think one tweak that we know that's also made was that when you're using the focus strikes in sword mode, the range on it was like really short. It kind of felt like almost as if like your sword just like turned into like a little like toothpick or something. So they have really increased that, so it's a lot more satisfying. The counter rising slash in sword mode, I think it's something we'll probably have to look into a little bit more, but I think we do know that was buffed up a little bit. Nice.
No, I really appreciate that. I just wanted to, again, because I see a lot of Switch Axe players like sending messages and stuff like that, and it's like I see it. I'll try. I'll see what we can say. But 2-6, you are a bow lover, although obviously you're now more of a lance guy, but with a lot of bow knowledge.
I'm all the weapons. I love every weapon. I think all the weapons in Wilds felt particularly fun to play, even if they weren't hitting the balance that we wanted to as like a whole. It was like only a few weapons that weren't in that kind of window of like balance where you would want it to be to really feel like it's hitting some oomph, and the lance was one of them, obviously. But the bow, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. The last time I talked about the bow, they're nerfing it now. So like I said, it was like busted in our review video of all the weapons. I'm not talking about the bow. You can talk about it.
Well, I think the bow is a very interesting one because, like John said before, they've done sort of a tweak that's like a rebalance. It's not a nerf, it's not a buff, it's a rebalance, and increasing the attack power of the normal shot and the arc shots, and then toning down the tracer shot, which I didn't really play a lot of bow in the actual open beta test. 2.6 did most of that, but the mental gymnastics of keeping that tracer shot up all the time, because it was in the open beta test by far the most optimal thing to do. It was definitely a playstyle. I don't know if it was my preferred playstyle, but if it has been adjusted so that maybe a more usual flow of doing the more normal attacks or going for those arc shots at the end of your charge level is the way to go. I think that's an interesting way to go. And then you've still got the tracer shot to mix in like where it makes sense, rather than a necessary like full uptime on it. But I just wanted to call out the sort of specific bow changes there. I think there's not really much more to say on that, right?
Yeah. Well, Johnny, you can go if you have.
Yeah, it's basically like the power's just been shifted around a bit. So with a lot of like the weapons, what you've seen is, say you have like 100 points, let's just say, and the team have gone, okay, let's kind of, and you've got like, say 70% was in tracer and 30% was in attack shots. They've kind of gone, right, 50-50 now. And then, okay, chucking an extra 10 across the board to raise everything up and again a bit more. So they've just basically made sure that there isn't, as Joe mentioned as well, one best way to play, and that all the different ways of using the weapons are viable and fun. And you can mix and match those different play styles for maximum fun. While still being effective, basically, rather than just being like, I smell wounds, and then popping off like 10 arrows. Like,
it was nuts.
I feel like with the bow, with it being so focused on the focus strike and the tracers, it kind of like lost its identity a little bit. So bringing back the strength of the arc shot and the normal shot is going to bring back a lot of that identity and more variety in terms of the play. But I think the changes to the tracer with the wounds, that's like a great tweak for multiplayer, because previously it's like if you're
all the wounds are gone.
All the wounds. My wounds. It's like, there they go again.
No, I absolutely love to hear that. And then I believe specifically for weapons, then outside of that, it was like more general comments on like, adjustments to elemental damage and skills, and like maybe juicing up some of the more lesser used and damaging moves that weren't really named. But Joe, since you are a great sword lover, we know True Charge Slash got increased. Is there any more tidbits we could learn about the great sword?
I know the sound effects in particular are one that like they made some pretty big tweaks to. And like, so when you think about hit stop, I think the sound effects are a big part of it. So just making it feel like much more punchy. In terms of like specific balance changes, I don't think we can get too much into that. But yeah, they have made it like feel a lot more satisfying to play. So hopefully people who love the Great Sword and World, or maybe got hooked on Great Sword and World, they'll feel that like that satisfaction coming back. Yeah.
Should we jump over to performance, do you say?
Yeah, no, I don't even feel that we really need to talk about performance too much, because you guys pretty nailed the head on the performance yesterday. But I will say that you were very happy, Jono, to be delivering that information that the performance has increased. I was watching your face and I was laughing so much because you're just like, yeah, we've increased that performance for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think my poker face was terrible. Joe's was much better, because I know something we were both, and the team, everyone was really excited about, because we know, I mean, we're all gamers as well. The team, we're all gamers. We know performance is important for everyone in any game, right? And obviously we also knew that the open beta test build was an older build that wasn't reflective of what the team were working on at the moment. So to be able to come out and for the team to share the work they're doing and the progress and the current state of the game across all platforms, and obviously we had a visual example for the base PS5 performance mode, felt fantastic. I was excited. I was excited for the community and for the team. Because, I think it's one thing just saying, hey, we're working on it, but for to be able to be in a position to be like, and here is a look at some of it, is really exciting, because, we know it's important for the community, and for everyone playing, whether they're on PlayStation, PC, Xbox, it's important for everyone. And, the key thing there as well is the team are still working really hard on it. And, Joe, do you want to talk a bit about like what we're doing on the PC side to try and help there?
Yeah. Before I get into it, I just want to just really like, at least for us as like kind of Europe and US, I think the performance for us was at the top of the list in terms of giving that feedback. That was something that we stressed really significantly, and the team was definitely aware. But I think we tried our best to just really hammer this home. Like, this is a really key part of the game that our audiences really care a lot about, and hopefully you guys feel that got across. But yeah, on the PC side, I think one thing that we mentioned was, if whatever hardware that you use on the open beta test, the game's going to run a lot better. Well, I don't know if we could say like a lot better, but it will run better on your existing setup in the full game. So pretty excited about that. But I think the benchmark tool is going to be hopefully something that will help people out a lot. And again, we're just kind of like exploring if that's something that we can do. So not like a 100% commitment to it, but the team is looking into it. I know there's like a lot of people out there who are maybe not sure if the game's going to run on their rig, or maybe they're considering upgrading their PC, or just want to see kind of where they're at. And I think that's going to really help out a lot. So hopefully that's something we can get out and people can kind of see where they're at and test out their rig, or if they're debating between buying like the PlayStation version or something, or then their PC. I think it'll be a huge help.
Nice. That's
I think it's a really awesome thing if that does end up going through. It was one of the points I was going to bring up, but you've already covered it there, which is great. I think it's just a helpful thing, but obviously it takes development time, and I don't even know what else goes into it technically, but I do love a benchmark, is all I'll say, when games have them integrated, or as a standalone tool in this case, which I think is what it was sort of hinted at.
Just one other thing, I really wish that we could show PC examples, but it can be pretty challenging, because it's just like, well, if we show a PC example and it's running on like a 4090, just like 9800X 3D, it's like, well, of course it's going to run amazing on that. It's just like godlike rig. So I think hopefully a benchmark tool can help with that quite a bit, because it's so personal. There's just like such a huge like spectrum of PC setups, and also I think like what performance is like I guess acceptable for people who like maybe like they have a lower end rig and want to play at 30, like they're specifically, you know, hoping that they can get it to 30, whereas like somebody who's spent like quite a bit of money on their rig, like they're like looking for like 120 FPS, like 4K, you know, without DLSS or something like that. So yeah, again, that's like, it's very, very personal to the user. So hopefully that the benchmark tool is going to help people figure that out.
I do have one point of feedback for showing image quality and frame rate. In a stream, it's very hard to see the difference. Could you please upload that as a separate video? I know you've done it on Twitter now, so it's all good, but in the stream we're watching, we're like, I kind of see the difference in the frame rate, but I can't see the difference in the image quality because YouTube bitrate and stuff like that. But it's cool.
Yeah, even then Twitter will compress it a bit as well, so it's like,
Yeah, we're well aware. We try to get this stuff in like as best quality as we can. That's why I mean, one of the reasons why we don't typically like upload all of our streams in 4K, but for this one we were just like, okay, YouTube 4K, this file size is going to be insane, but let's do it. We'll do what we can. So yeah,
nice.
I always appreciate the 4K uploads, by the way. I always try and watch stuff like that, and it makes like you know, if we do use clips of stuff like that, it makes it look a bit better. So very much appreciate that on my side. Should we just quickly talk about friendly fire? Because I thought that was quite an interesting one. It's almost a point of debate at the moment. And I think you guys did a really good job of explaining, or like Tokuda did a really good job of explaining the philosophy behind it, which is that, you know, some moves have massive increases to their range now. And the knockback, and this is a game that's bringing in even more new hunters. So when you've got a move like the Wyvern Fire on the Gun Lance that obviously shoots like a massive like explosion that can knock people over or flinch them, for a new player that might not be the easiest thing to work around. But the hammer upswing was the sort of example that was shown. And I'd be interested to know where everyone stands, because I'm kind of on the side of, I think the knock up is better than a knock over. For me personally, if you get knocked up, you can at least like get a cool mount and it adds some cool moments. You can plan it with your friends, whereas getting knocked over is almost just always a net negative. you know. So I just wonder what your guys' thoughts on that is, where you maybe stand on the knock up or knock over, because I think some veterans sort of like to use it as a strategy, although obviously sometimes it happens by accident.
No, go Jono.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. And as you said, you know, it's one that, you know, the community are talking about. And even I think, you know, when we were going through it in the broadcast, we kind of acknowledged, look, you know, we know this is something that not everyone might initially align with, because you're right, you know, I'm a sword and shield main. I'm used to being, you know, thrown in the air and then getting a mountain kind of thing and stuff like that. And you know, I get it. It's fun with your friends. You know, you can get these epic moments or funny moments where you throw someone into like a fireball or something like that by accident, I add. But, you know, I think, you know, the team are looking at it in such a broad, great way of like, okay, you know, this is the next Monster Hunter title. You know, hopefully you have lots of new players and returning players. And you know, this is the most multiplayer, you could say, like Monster Hunter title. We've had, you know, 100 player lobbies, 16 players per camp. If you're playing in a public way or you've got like a big kind of session going on, you know, how's that new player experience, and how will that experience also impact our experienced players? And, you know, like you mentioned with the Gun Lance and the Wyvern Fire, it's a big boom and things like that. And it's a two-way sword, really. How would a new player feel constantly being tossed away from the monster when they're trying to attack what they, you know, the head, because, you know, that's the weak point. I'm going to go for that for a lot of monsters and things like that, you know, being flung away. Or if you're the player flinging other players away and you're like, oh, you know, and what's really important for us is, you know, we want these players coming in and we want them to be like, hey, this is cool. I'm having fun. This community rocks. Let's stick around. And, you know, if you accidentally disrupt other players, or you're being disrupted a lot in your first time in a multiplayer game, you might not stick around. You might be like, yo, this isn't for me, and move on. So, you know, it's tricky because we know veteran players, we know the mechanics. We've been playing the games for years. You know, we get it. Whereas, you know, on the flip side, though, obviously, you know, making it feel welcoming to players and that they are contributing and not kind of or being bullied out of how they want to play is a safe one. But we know it's not that simple. This is obviously, you know, I'm biased because, you know, I'm coming from the side where the change is coming from. And I mean, Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's something that like you have to think about like how it affects just different spectrum of players, from like new players to veterans, and it's not like 100% like easy change to make. We are tracking kind of like community conversation, what everybody's saying about it. I do agree that like like the hammer upswing is definitely like a very like specific quirk of Monster Hunter, I think, but it is also something that can be used for either griefing or may just discourage some people from playing multiplayer. So I think I definitely see both sides of the argument, right? Where it's like, and especially when people haven't had like a chance to really play like the new version of it. So maybe it's not as it's different in practice from actually just seeing it. So curious to see what people think about it as we get a little bit further. But yeah, we're tracking things. We're seeing what you guys are saying. Again, like it is like something that's thinking about new players and thinking about the wider audience that's going to play this game. Not just kind of like core Monster Hunter players, but also like all the people who maybe have never played a Monster Hunter game before, or people that we want to bring in and play through crossplay and things like that. So yeah, we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of what everybody's saying, and for new players, right, they're also not going to be the ones who are like, I love this change, because they may not even know this game exists yet, or really are even talking about it. So it's definitely a change that I think we anticipated is going to be maybe a little bit divisive, because it is something that is pretty new, and it's something that's been established in Monster Hunter for a while. But hopefully you guys feel like Tokuda-san really explained his reasoning very well. And I thought like being able to present the change and talk about his design philosophy and how he, really wants like kind of players to behave. Hopefully that helps everybody kind of like understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, I totally understand the rationale behind it. I think that the general community should understand the rationale behind why it's changed, because it can be used for griefing, and anybody that says any different, you can see somebody getting knocked up. I think where it becomes sort of divisive is depending on like how you play. If you're playing with a group of friends and you're knocking each other up, it's fine. But there's a lot of people that just play with randoms online, and then that's where it goes, the kind of line blurs, and it kind of gets really annoying if someone's repeatedly knocking you up and actually griefing you. So it'll be interesting to see where everything lands. You see, knock up in the final game. Yeah, for now, I can understand the change. It's not going to be a massive change. It's like if someone's knocking you up, you put on the shockproof jewel anyway. So most people, it's not going to impact them that much because they were working around it anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. It's like my whole take on it.
And I think as well, kind of back to the hunting horn balance, as well as obviously the lens the community has at the minute is strictly on the open beta test, because that's the only experience and exposure they've had to the game. Whereas the team, when they're looking at balance and design, they know the full scope of the whole game. So they're like with the hunting horn, we said, attack up S, whereas we know what it's going to be like with attack up L. So, the team, obviously, they have this foresight and, this vision that, everyone else doesn't have yet, because, they don't know about it. So, I think that's, it's also us kind of going, give us the benefit of the doubt on this one, kind of, and see why that might, as time goes on. But yeah, we get it. We know that out of everything we shared, that's the one thing where some people were like, well, but we do appreciate that, the people that didn't necessarily agree with it shared that, but they did it in the right way. They weren't like, right, that's it, right, get my pitchfork and stuff like that. They aired their constructive criticism, because it was constructive, and their thoughts. And even if they didn't agree, they were like, well, look at the rest of this cool stuff that I'm getting. So
yeah,
I think that's a perfect point. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think like one of the challenges with like presenting a lot of these changes is that people's only touch point so far is the open beta test. Like even if you think about like some of the multiplayer stuff that we explained with how like environment link works and how that's designed to work, and why it can come off really confusing when you only have one map in the open beta. It's really designed so that you have all these dynamic environments when all the maps are in the game and you're at the end game, and all these different weather states and different monsters on different maps. Like you want to be able to have like a little bit more control over whose game you're going to join and things like that. But like when you go into the beta, it's just like you have no context for that, like no reference point. It's just like, I don't understand why this is this way. And the team has like, they have access to the full game, so they're able to kind of like really understand that from the broad point of view. So, but it is really good feedback for us to hear that, because, you know, people are going to have a period of time where they're new to this game, like they're playing the first 10 hours, and then maybe they get used to things when they're like 500 hours in. But, you know, if we lose them in the start, it doesn't matter if it doesn't, you know, if it's intended to work that way. So the feedback is super, super helpful. But again, like the team is like looking at a lot of stuff of like, you're going to have to play this game, or you're not going to have to, but you are going to play this game.
Will play.
I will have to. No. But yeah, you know, people are going to play the game for hundreds, maybe thousands of hours. So they're trying to think about how things work in the short term, but also the long term, especially like once you get used to things or you learn things. I think it's really on us to like try and help explain some of that stuff, so people can kind of see the big picture.
Yeah, I think it's great that a large portion of the Monster Hunter community are, like you say, constructive criticism is what they're giving. And I'm sort of assuming that that is a reflection of the good changes that have come in this update. Is, you know, if people were just getting their pitchforks and being angry about things, it doesn't convey the problem that needs to change. It just shows people are being angry and attacking, rather than, oh, this particular move now works this way and I preferred it when it worked this way in the old game, or something like that. And through that sort of good criticism, we've seen some really positive changes. And again, I just want to double down. I'm super impressed with these changes. I think you guys and the dev team, everyone seems to have done a really good job here. And I'm just seeing praise across the board. So again, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jono. 26, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, what's Tokuda like?
Oh,
he's a great dude. Yeah, he's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
he is
like,
genuinely just like such a happy guy. It's just like a pleasure to be around him and to talk about games and to talk about like, you know, Monster Hunter, because he just genuinely loves it. You know, one thing that I think it didn't end up getting in the stream, but, you know, something that he said to us was that, you know, even though he's been working on this game for such a long time, he loves playing it every day. He feels super, super excited about it, and that he's really confident in the quality of the game. So, I mean, hearing him like feel so passionately about the game and like feel so confident in it, it gives us a lot of energy, because we love the game. We can tell the community is really hyped for the game, and hearing that the creator himself, like, who's just in the weeds every day. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who like have worked on something for so long and they're just like over it by the end of it. To hear him just say like, I love playing this game and I can't wait for people to play it themselves. That's like that's what it's all about, right? Like you want to have a director who loves to play his own game. He's making something that he wants to play himself. So I just love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, he's such a cool guy to be around. He loves the community. Like, you know, he'll check through, you know, even English language YouTube comments and little bits and things like that himself, because he cares. He wants to know what people think about the game him and his team are working on, you know, about Monster Hunter in general. And I remember like when, you know, Joe and I get the opportunity to hang out with him and things like that, and like at Gamescom as well, like we were just gushing about the weapons. He's like, Jono, what do you think? How's the sword and shield feeling and stuff like that? And you saw our little streams that we were doing as well with Tokuda-san there and things like that. Like he's such a great guy to be around and work with. Same with like Ryozo-san and Fujioka-san as well. But yeah, Tokuda-san, like, what the perfect guy for this. And, you know, he loves it. He does see the stuff in the community, which is why Joe and I kind of repeat that the way you give your feedback and sharing stuff. If you're like, hey, like with the comments on our YouTube broadcast, it's like, we love this. Thank you. We love the way you're communicating with us. You know, MH devs are goats and stuff like that. It actually does make an impact. The team cares, so they do check this stuff out. You know, honestly, it's a great thing. So it's not just me and Joe feeding stuff back all the time. You know, the team are out there looking because they care and they know that the community have been with Monster Hunter for a long time over in the West. And, you know, it's gone from being a more niche title to, you know, with World kind of putting it on this global stage, and hopefully then Wild to take it to the next level. So, you know, the team are very conscious of that. And, you know, as Joe said, they love the game. They play the game all the time. We nerd out about the game in our meetings and stuff like that. Yeah, and he's always there to listen, and he's always asking, you know, what do we think as well? And it really is a privilege for us to share a platform with him and to be trusted with what we do over in the US and Europe.
Yeah, I was pretty gassed at Gamescom when he was like, I think was it you that introduced us to him? And he was like, "Oh, Arekkz Gaming, I watch your videos." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing on Tokuda-san. We filmed this thing at like some insane time in Japan, and this was not like something that was like mandated on him or anything like that. Like nobody was telling him from the top like he had to do this. This was his idea. He came into that stream at like this crazy time, and
was that 1 a.m. to start for him?
That's crazy.
Wow. And he was like more energy than us. It's like he's really passionate about this. Like he really cares about community a lot. Like he felt really strongly that he wanted to show you guys like these are the tweaks that the team is making, and that the game is in a much better state now, and that it's looking really great, and he feels like really confident about its quality. So again, like I really hope that came across. I hope his passion came across, because he's a great guy.
Yeah,
Definitely
nice.
did come across, I would say. I'll go to Joe and then to Jono. I just wonder if you have anything you want to put out there to the Monster Hunter community, the audience, any sort of things to point out or final remark?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a pretty crazy year. I think we announced this game a year ago. I remember like Jono and I were like, I think we were on a video call, like doing this announcement, like like scrambling around, but also like tears in our eyes, like, oh, thank God it's out there. Yeah. And since then, it's just been a crazy year. Like I'm remembering like we did our 20th anniversary stuff at the start of the year, which is like, that feels like several years ago now, but it's been less than a year. We had stories come out, then we had the re-reveal and everything at State of Play. We had Summer Game Fest, and then all these events, Gamescom, you guys were there. Which unfortunately I couldn't make it out to. We had PAX, and it's just like TGS. It's been a really crazy year, and thanks to everybody for sticking with us throughout this crazy year, for being hyped for the game, because like your guys' hype and like coming out to events, co-streaming stuff, like that gets us like really excited. It like we feel really energized by working on the game. For me personally, like this is one of my favorite games that it's probably my favorite game that I've worked on, and I can't wait to just like play it with everybody else. So thanks for everybody for your support, and we're only getting started, because once the new year starts, we're rolling. So yeah.
Yeah, like to follow on from Joe, it's the community that really are, driving us forward. And to even touch on, like, to mention Gamescom, 6 to 8 hour queues, like to play Monster Hunter, and the team were very conscious of that as well. They were like blown away by the power and like of the fandom, and how keen they were to play and willing to queue up. And we're really lucky, and thank you as well to the way, I know the community is not one single entity, but the way it conducts itself as a whole allows us to do what we do, allows us to have this level of engagement, and for the devs to come out as well and chat and do the kind of stuff we did yesterday as well. And, I know that there's quite a mixed bag when it comes to gaming communities as a whole, but we really are lucky to have you. And, even when you might not be so happy about a particular thing, even if you're frustrated, the way you handle it really, really does go a long way. And, if it wasn't like it was now, we wouldn't be able to do what we do and have that engagement. And so we really appreciate your trust, your patience, and how you chat with us as well. Which is really cool. And as Joe said, I can't believe in a matter of, was it a week or two now before it's the year of Monster Hunter Wilds, like I kind of pinch myself, because for so long, Joe and I've been like, oh yeah, this is coming in X amount of years, or this is coming in X amount of months, and now it's like, right. Oh wow, it's here. And yeah, like this party's just getting started,
Definitely, I like Game of the Year 2025, maybe.
I like to think so.
I would love for that. But it's a pretty crazy year next year in gaming.
Yeah. All gamers are eating good next year, especially so if they play Monster Hunter Wilds, released in February 28th.
There you go. Well, Jono, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat, going through all this stuff. I think it was really interesting to get like the inside scoop and the knowledge off of you guys on these various different points and updates. So thank you for the time, taking the time to have a chat about all of this stuff. We really do appreciate it. And I think we'll have more Monster Hunter stuff coming very soon. Obviously, Next year's going to be very exciting, so make sure you guys are there. Of course, me and 2-6 will be working on the guides once the game comes out, so hopefully you guys will know all the moves on the weapons and stuff like that. We can't wait to get stuck in on it. But yeah, thank you again, Joe. Thank you again, Jono. And thank you again, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Here at Arekkz Gaming, we're two friends who love to play games. You have me, Paradise, as well as 2-6.
Our goal is to keep the videos as concise as possible by cutting out any of the fluff and focusing on what really matters with high quality videos.
So make sure you're subscribed down below for more videos on your favorite games coming very, very soon.